Hey everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoble, and you are on the lifeboat. Hope everyone's doing all right. You know what? It's been one of those days, people. I'm not going to be here a long time tonight, but I did want to put in an appearance this evening and make sure that everybody was doing all right. Stop in and say hello and talk about something that I'm getting emails on about every 30 seconds, literally. It seems that there is a great deal of question and a great deal of concern about how one confronts, is the term that I get most often, a loved one that needs help. And confront it's a tough word, but it is the word that most people use. And I completely understand why. I understand the need for people to confront. The two toughest conversations you're ever going to have anywhere with any human being, I promise you. You can argue about anything you want, but the two toughest conversations you're ever going to have is when you tell someone you're a drug addict or when you tell somebody that you think they are. These are going to be conversations that you're not going to enjoy, and neither is the person that you're talking to. So if you love the person and you really want the person to get sober, this is kind of a big deal to get figured out quickly. Right? Or you're going to be in deep trouble, because it is one of the simplest things on planet Earth that you can do is to accidentally say something to an addict that is going to ensure that they do not say something to you again until they are sober. This is a frightening thing. It really is, because we go in with the best of intentions and we want so much to help someone. But I don't care if a person is in the throes of addiction. As an example, if that addiction is opiates and you go in there and you say to them anything you have planned out and written out and asked friends to help you with, what they're going to hear is this: I want you to stop feeling well. I want you to get sick. I want you to go through it. And then I want you to deal with all of the emotions that caused you to do this dope in the first place. That's what I want out of you. And it doesn't matter what you say to them and how many times you say, I love you. What they're going to hear is, you want them to stop doing dope. You want them to get sick. You want them to go through withdrawal, and you want them to deal with everything that ever drove them to dope in the first place. So that conversation's got to be really a kid glove kind of thing. If you have any hopes whatsoever of getting any kind of love out of it, if the person walks away, that's fine. That is. Providing you're not going to burn a bridge so badly that they never speak to you again. And the key, I think, if you find yourself in this position, is if you come across as judgmental, even accidentally, right? Then that's the end of the game. It really is. A person, every single drug addict on planet Earth knows that emotion and knows that feeling from people more than they know anything, because there are only a couple of emotions that we get, right? And the first is pity. And pity is an emotion that makes people, especially addicts, hate you. You pity me for where I'm at, and I promise you the emotion back is not going to be a good one. So when you go in to talk to somebody who's a drug addict, somebody in active addiction, pity is not the emotion to bring in. There's a big difference between pitying someone and loving somebody and caring for somebody, you know? And one of the greatest phrases I ever heard anybody utter to me, and they said, hey, before I get rolling, I have put more needles in my arms than you have. That was his icebreaker. And I'll be really honest with you, he had my attention, right? He said, before I get rolling, man, I have put more needles in my arm than you have. And I know that you're not happy in this life. There's just no comeback from that. What am I going to say to him? Of course I am. This is great. Nothing beats this. This is how I want to live. I want to get up in the morning sick as hell. I want to know that if there's any hope of me not being sick in the very near future, it's going to require me stealing something and selling it to somebody who buys stolen property, right? That's going to be my day. That's tough, right? Obviously, that's not the life I want to live. But if you can communicate that and do it in a loving way, and then the next thing out of your mouth needs to be, and it needs to be loud and it needs to be clear, there are ways today to get sober without pain. Physical pain, emotional pain, there's not much you can do about it. You're going to have to work through that. That is what it is. But you can get a person through the unpleasant part Hold on one moment. Well, this is the greatest question of all time, isn't it? How, as a parent, do you help a 17-year-old who is putting themselves on a path to destruction? Well, the most important thing in the entire world is that the lines of communication between you and the 17-year-old child remain wide open and remain as uncontentious as possible. And sometimes, as a parent, it's a very difficult thing because the concept that our kid could be smoking weed is enough to send most of us into fits of depression. Right? We have dreams of our children winning Nobel Peace Prizes and becoming presidents. Right? We don't want our kids smoking pot, whether we did or not, or anything else. However, in today's day and age, you choose your battles, because if you come at the child in such a way that they think you can't handle the concept that this has happened, you come at your child and say, the example I always use is you're having a conversation with your kid and you're open and honestly discussing something like weed, and you say to them, do you have any friends that smoke? Just be honest with me. It's not a big deal. Do you have any friends that smoke? And they go, yeah, my friend Peter smokes. You can never talk to Peter again as long as you live. I don't want him in this house. What are you telling your kid? You're telling your kid, don't tell me the truth, because I'm going to go off. I can't handle it. I will lose my mind. Right? Okay, that's a good answer. If it's weed, I would not be as worried. Okay, if it's one of the harder substances, then if it's me, and I've talked about this with friends often. If it's me and I have a child at 17 who is on a harder drug, I'm going to do everything within my power to get that child into a long-term treatment program as fast as possible. And I understand that that's tough. It really is. I also would take off the door off of his bedroom. I would remove it. I would take off the door off of the bathroom that he uses. Like, that's honest to God, because to me, in this day and age, with what's on the street today, tough love isn't I'm letting you leave my house, right? Tough love is you're staying in my house, but you're not getting high on anything while you're in here, honestly. And if you go back through and look at ounce of prevention videos, I've done a whole bunch of them, right? They're called the Ounce of Prevention series, and it is about this exactly. It's about how you handle when things like this are happening. I believe wholeheartedly that kids are entitled to privacy and really, kind of important things. In fact, I had written up like a Bill of Rights for my kids, and there was a Bill of Rights for me, and my kid has privacy. Any privacy my child had coming to them, they had coming to them, and I wasn't going to spy on them. I wasn't going to do any of those things until they violated part of my contract, which was, if your grades go from A to C in one semester, I'm going to start searching your room, because that doesn't make sense. That shouldn't happen. If all of your friends change in 2 weeks, okay, then all bets are off, right? Now I'm going to start becoming a detective, because I need to, right? Because street dope today is cut with fent. Everything today is cut with fent. Everything today is cut with fent. So we have to be into a situation where this is, unfortunately, if I were having this conversation with you 2 or 3 years ago, I would have a completely different conversation. But the lines of communication are huge. If you said to your 17-year-old, would you be willing to talk to, Tommy Scovel, I would really be happy to talk to your 17-year-old. And you know what? I mean, I'm not boring. I robbed a bunch of banks. You might just be willing to talk about, for that, if for no other reason. But if that's the case, send me an email, because I'll talk to your kid. I'll be happy to. Because honestly, the most important thing right now is communication, right? If your kid's going to continue to do things that he shouldn't or she shouldn't do, then they have to understand that the pill that they see has to come out of a pill bottle from a pharmacy that has their name on it. Because everything on the street, this isn't propaganda. This isn't me making stuff up, right? This is 350 people a day dying. And those are low numbers, but that's the numbers they're telling us, right? 350 a day. So these conversations are hard, but they have to happen. They have to happen now. They really do. On the bright side, if you're a drug addict and you're listening to the sound of my voice and you're using, and you're thinking to yourself, I so badly need to tell my family that I have a problem and how hard that's going to be, I want to tell you something. It is not the conversation you think it's going to be. Number one, I have done this, right? I've obviously had to be the person to make that call. And I remember calling my father and telling him that I was addicted to heroin. And he was my hero and the best man I've ever met. And honestly, just maybe one of the best people I've ever met. You know? And that call, and I was waiting for the shock. I mean, he went, heroin? Really? Heroin? I said, I'm sorry. But he said to me, well, we were waiting for whatever it was. I mean, no one's stupid. We think the world is, but it's not, right? Everybody in my life was going, something's really, really wrong with Tommy. Right? Like there's nobody on planet Earth that didn't know something was really, really wrong, right? Or I was just straight evil. And no one wanted to believe that, right? And even I didn't want to believe that. But it's amazing what drugs will do. Yeah, you do have to keep kids away from it. However, your kids have to be able to come to you and say, you know what, so-and-so's getting high, and you got to just be able to roll with the punches and be like, okay, listen, please know you can't take anything, right? You can't take anything from people on the street. If experimentation in drugs is something that is going to be such a big part of your life that literally you can't get through without, I would like to believe that's not the case. But if that's the case for my child, well, then my child's going to have to wait until obviously they're over 18, number one. And number two, they're going to know more about drugs than they ever wanted to know because they're my kid. So I beat this to death. I tell them about what's on the street. I tell them about what percentage of pills will kill you. I tell them all of this, right? And there's a bunch of videos I've done out there on this. I promise, a bunch. But right now, 60% of pills marked perk 30 will kill you, plain and simple. And the size of the busts that are going down, Riverside, California, 2 days ago, $4.5 million worth of fentanyl tabs. Just a young woman driving through Riverside. Okay, not what you would think, but and they had the picture of the car. The entire top was covered. If you go back within the last week and a half, you're going to see a screenshot or a thumbnail rather for one of my videos, and it's just a pile of pills on top of a car. 400,000 pills, and that was my brother and I that drove by that. It wasn't. We didn't pull that off the net. We snapped that photo out of our car. This is the world that we're in, right? And great point was made on an earlier video. There's a mad shortage of what? Pain medication and the treatment for pain medication. It's driving the world to the street. Now, listen, if you're on drugs and you can't get off yet, right? That's a reality. I understand, man. There's a lot of people that listen to me that still get high. Get fentanyl test strips, right? Call your local pharmacy. Ask them about fentanyl test strips, right? If you think you're getting dope, at least know what you're doing before you put it in you. If I'm not stupid. I know that if you tested the dope and it says fentanyl, it's not like you're not going to do the dope, right? What are you going to be sick? You're going to do the dope. But at least you go, hey, maybe I shouldn't do this the way that I would have done, you know? How do you help your 7-year-old son? You know the signs and you know he's doing something, but he denies and he gets defensive. His dad died at 38 from drugs. I'm lost. What can I do? Jackie, it's so hard. It really is. Again, the worst thing that can happen is for the lines of communication to collapse. There's a woman in Florida, and I don't know if she's still watching. We've tried so hard together to get through to her daughter, and we've been on the phone together with her, and we've just been trying for a really long time. And you know what? The really sad thing is this. You know, the other email I get more than any other, believe it or not, I swear to God, I'm telling you the truth. But the truth of the matter is that I just saw him. He just did a year in county jail. I'm sorry, Jackie. I really am. It's so hard. It is. It's so hard because the email I get second most to anything else is the question, how many chances do I have to give somebody? I swear to God, I get this probably 5 times a day. I'm not being funny in any way. I probably get 5 a day from people that say, how many chances do you give somebody? And the answer is however many it takes. I'm just really glad that nobody put a number on me. I'm glad that the number wasn't 60 or 100 or 200. I don't know how many chances I got. I don't. But good God. Uh, the most important thing, because sometimes it takes 250 tries, is just to let the person know that you love them. And as they start to get defensive, just go, hey, you know what? Stop. There's no reason for any of that. I'm not here to bust your chops. I'm not doing that. I'm not busting your chops. Hold on a second. I know he uses a dry bong and tobacco out of cigars and partially burns it. I don't know what he's doing. Well, it sounds like he's rolling a blunt, or the dry bong thing is kind of unusual. Dry bongs are kind of odd. Not too many people do dry bongs, but if he's breaking up cigars, there are kids though, believe it or not. And when I say kids, I say I shouldn't use that term, but because to me now everybody's a kid because I'm old as dirt. But it's become a thing to mix tobacco and weed. My nephew was telling me about friends of his doing this. That's really kind of catching on. I'm not exactly sure why in God's name anybody would do that, but once again, Martha Simmons is great advice. Keep talking to the 32-year-old, but set boundaries that you won't enable them, and that's absolutely spot on. Thank you, Martha. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because it's spot on. One of the things that you have to be the most careful about as you start to try to intervene with people. One of the things that you're going to be the most cautious about is that we're not buying their dope, that we're not getting them high, right? That we're not getting worked. And I'll tell you what, addicts are masters. I've told this story before, but I mean, I used to set lies up months in advance as an addict. I'm not kidding. You would say things like, God forbid they say anything like, how's the car run? That's funny. You should say that. Yeah. There's this thing it's doing in the back end. I'm going to get it looked at here eventually, but it's just, I don't know, it shimmies or something in the back end. I mean, I was setting that lie up so that it's somewhere down the road. If I just couldn't steal that there, if I just didn't have it in me or whatever it was, that I could then call in that lie. And that's the kind of mindset that went on. And it went on like that for a really, really long time until I got to a point where I truthfully believed that that's who I was and that I wasn't capable of anything but that. I thought that I was an individual who was just going to be that guy. Yeah, addicts are masters of manipulation. They have to be. The only way you can remain an addict. This is a true story. I swear to God, this is a true story. I got forced to go to a rehab program from the federal government, and I went in and the guy that was running the group said, "Raise your hand if you're in here for cocaine." And no, not one hand went up. And he said, "Raise your hand if you're in here for methamphetamine." And I mean, like 99 hands went up. Right, this was right during the meth crisis, especially up in Nevada, real bad. And then raise your hand if you're in here for heroin. And I was the only hand in the room that went up, which was just bizarre to me, right? But he said to me, "How long have you been on heroin?" And I said, "About 26 years, I think." And he said to me, "Oh my God, you have got to be proud." And I wanted to punch this dude's lights out. Like, I mean, I was offended. Like, I wanted to get up and hit this dude in front of the entire group. He's nodding. He's like, "For real. Good stuff." I was like, "Man, I'll knock your teeth out." You know what I mean? I'm sitting in the back of the room like that, disrespectful. So I wait till the group was over. And then I went walking in afterwards and I said, "Hey, man, it's a little out of line, wasn't it?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "That crack about, I got to be proud of being, a dope fiend for 26 years." He goes, "Oh, I didn't." He said, "Nah, man." He goes, "I was addicted to heroin." He goes, I don't know how you keep that going 10 years. He said, "I wasn't being a smart ass at all." He goes, "I didn't mean any disrespect at all." He goes, "I just don't know how you pulled that off for 26 years. And in hindsight, I don't think he was being a smart ass. I think he was bewildered that, I mean, how many lies have you got to tell in 26 years? How many people do you have to manipulate in 26 years to keep that going?" Well, the crazy thing, Martha, is I didn't quit for another 4 years, another 3.5. I made it almost the full 3 decades. Really, really long time. I mean, and not all smack after starts out eating pills and all of that, and then the insurance company, says no more of that. And, it's a progression, right? It started with skiing and injuries, but yeah, you know what, I'm a little surprised that I'm still alive myself. I've been in. I lost a lot of weight after the little heart incident. I got down to a much healthier weight for my heart. I could still probably get a little bit healthier. And what I've got today, I don't know. There's food poisoning. What the hell I got today? It's just super uncomfortable. It makes it. I can't keep much down. Although dinner has stayed down so far. One of the things about legal cannabis, the one thing you can say about legal cannabis is people are going to get a product that is a safe product. And again, if I'm choosing my battles, both of my kids have smoked pot. Both of my kids have admitted to me that they smoke pot or have smoked pot. And I just felt like I won the lottery. Not so much that they had just used weed, but that they had told me that they did weed. Like I didn't have to go asking them. I wasn't, one a little bit more than the other. But they've been very, very open and honest with me. My son, to a point where sometimes I gotta before we get in the conversation, I've literally got to say to him, "Hey, man, listen, don't hit me with anything today that I can't handle." It's one of those days because my son doesn't lie to me and is super into telling the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. Yeah, that's exactly how it happens. I think that is exactly how it happens. I remembered so many little pearls of wisdom that did nothing for me for so long. Then sort of all, came in at once. Like I think I've told the story before, but the very first time I ever stepped into a prison, the first time I ever entered a prison, there were two black guys that were playing chess together that were ancient. I mean, like right out of central casting. These were two really old black guys. And I was standing in line with my bedroll or everybody else to go in, and the guy was standing right there. And I said, "You got any advice?" He said, "Why? It's your first time?" I said, "Yeah, it is." He said, "Whatever you do, man, don't let this place change you." I said, "All right, man, thanks, Pops," which is what everybody calls anybody over the age of like 45 in prison, right? Your Pops. I said, "Hey, thanks, Pops." And I'm standing in line with my bedroll waiting because nothing happens fast. I'm just standing there. Well, that guy got up to go to the bathroom. The other guy that was standing there playing with him said, "Hey, do me a favor." I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Don't listen to a word that stupid N-word said." He goes, "No, what you want to do is make sure that this place changes you. Because if this place doesn't change you, then you'll be my age. And you'll be playing chess with some dude in here." And you would think that would change it, wouldn't you? Like, that's a nugget. That's a nugget. Day one, first time in. Still took 2 more prison sentences, right? I mean, seriously, that was even before I robbed banks. Like at that point, after hearing that, I went out and robbed banks. Make any sense? Right? Not a lick. But nobody in their right mind does dope. Nobody in their right mind robs banks, right? Nobody in their right mind. Well, once you start talking about stuff that's not done in your right mind, I'm not going to beat myself up for it. Sorry, I'm not. I've come to grips with the damage that I've done while under the influence. I have spent tremendous amounts of time making amends to the people that I hurt the most, that I have the ability to make amends to. I'm not a 12-stepper. I'm not. I just, to me, the best way that you can do that, like I can call people up and tell them, "Oh, sorry, I did a lot of dope and the effects that it had on them," or I can live my life in such a way that every time they look at me, they think, "Geez, he's just not the same guy." Right. And that's, I promise you, the goal until they close the box. Zofran, I know a lot of people that are talking about it. It's, yeah, there's a lot of people talking about it. I don't know enough about it, people. I really don't. And I'm not a doctor. If it gets you high, I probably know a bunch about it. Like I'm an amateur pharmacist when it comes to stuff that gets you high. Most assuredly, people, I'm just a guy that did a lot of dope. Demon, there's so much truth to this right now. There really is. Sometimes we have to watch the people we love hit bottom. And then they might be more open to help. As a parent, it's heartbreaking. As a friend, it's heartbreaking. As a brother, it's heartbreaking. As anybody, it's heartbreaking. But as a parent, it's probably the worst, to be sure. To be sure. Um, Thank the Lord, right, that there was a period of time where we could let people bounce off the ground, like they could hit rock bottom, and we could immediately, kind of swoop in and help pick them up. We don't have a lot of option anymore. We got to make sure that we don't let that happen nearly as much because it's so dangerous. Do I think bank robbers have been glamorized in the movies or in TV series? Good Lord, yes. To give you an idea of just how bad it is, the first prison that I ever got to was FCI Phoenix, Federal Corrections Institute in Phoenix. And when I got there, they said, mail call, you go up and you go get your mail or whatever. And the guy said to me, "Oh man, you're here." He's like, comes out with this stack of mail. And I don't know anybody, right? At the time I was engaged to be married, right? So there's one person that would have been writing to me, right? I said, "What the hell is this?" Well, these were just people literally that like pull your names out of newspapers or whatever and write to you because you're a bank robber. Like there's a fascination with it, and that fascination comes from films. Because in movies, when a guy robs a bank, right? When a guy robs a bank in a movie, he gets in there and he hits the vault. He leaves with $40 million or $20 million, and they use automatic weapons and they keep the joint for a year, and they got the plans and the schematics, and they're killing. That's just not how it happens, right? It's just not what happens. In fact, in 99 out of 100 bank robberies, the guy's not going to get more than about $4,000. It's absolutely glorified to beat hell in movies. It's never done by somebody so that they can drive a Ferrari and live in a really nice house, right? It's not what happens. It happens in movies, right? But in the real world, if a guy's robbing a bank, it's because he needs to put a needle in his arm fast, right? And he's tired of stealing. So he's going to go directly to the source and just steal money this time. I mean, that's honestly, bank robberies are done by drug addicts. They're done by desperate people. And I mean, desperate business people go to banks and borrow money. Desperate drug addicts go to banks and rob money, right? It's really just. I want to tell you something, honey. I absolutely love you. So my brother and I were talking about you yesterday. I seriously, nobody in their right mind sings terribly and gets on stage to perform in this way. I am concerned about Corey Feldman. He's an admitted drug user. Yes, I'm telling you, I'm worried about Corey Feldman too. I'm not even being. I'm laughing because the performance is just horrendous, people. It's so bad. It's so bad that it will make you laugh. But to get up on stage, she's absolutely right. To get up on stage and do that, right? And obviously, it's not the first time you've done it. And to continue, you either have not an iota of self-awareness or you're on dope. I'm sorry. That's to me. It's cut and dry. And there's a lot coming out that says he was a guy that's doing a lot of dope, unfortunately. Martha Simmons got straight A's in high school and was doing every drug under the sun in the 70s. Martha, I'm fascinated. I got a scholarship to an Ivy League school. I was still a mess. Martha, I'm fascinated. Send me an email. Get you on here. That's a conversation. As a mom of 6 kids, I had to learn that the trust builds trust. My son thought I was perfect. Yeah. Set him down and told him about my failures. Opened his heart enough to share his. Beautiful. The lines of communication, right? This is a real thing, right? We as parents never want to admit anything to our kids, right? God forbid you admit for a second that you did drugs. Your child's obviously going to run right out and do them. And the truth of the matter is, it's the exact opposite. What will happen is when you give your child advice about drugs, they won't go down. She doesn't know what she's talking about, right? But all kids assume that we lived in this time before the dinosaur, right? You don't realize till you're in your 40s and 50s that you were I was 24 years off of World War II or something like that, right? 24 years off World War II, right? Holy hell. I don't seem that old, do I? But I look back at my dad. I mean, as I got older, I realized that we were that far apart in age. You know, the scheme of things. Once you get past 30, you're starting to really, you know, get honed in on it. It's frightening, honestly. It really is. I'm glad that you're being honest with your kids. If your kids realize that you're human, they will talk to you. I promise they will open up. And I'm not saying, look, they don't need details, right? Honestly, I never had to scare the crap out of my kids. I didn't need this to break down the greatest stories of my greatest exploits. That's not necessary. Deeming says Ben Affleck made a great movie about a bank robbery. Bank robbers became a generational thing in Charleston, Mass. Let me tell you something about the movie. So, as a bank robber, you want to talk about that's the most annoying movie ever made. As a real bank robber, I'll just tell you why. Because after that film came out, every single person I met in prison for bank robbery said to me, I used to carry hair into the bank from local barber places. And I mean, I'm not kidding you. 100 people told me that. And I would go, oh, wow. How about that? You're a genius. I think I saw that in the movie. I assure you, I mean, there might be guys doing it. I never did, but certainly everybody claims that they did. Yeah. Mischief, did you journal today? Allie's there. A little accountability back and forth. People holding one another up. It's a beautiful thing. Right, Martha? At least your parents couldn't hold school over your head. I'm amazed that you could get grades in that situation. I don't mean it with disrespect. To me, that's fascinating. It really is. I melt down. My ability to do anything in the midst of trauma is, and I apologize also. I had no idea, Martha. I certainly didn't mean any disrespect. I assure you. Um, yeah, I'm fascinated by people who in the face of that perform and do so at a high level. To me, that is, yeah. I mean, it's a story that I assure you, and I talk to addicts every single day, and the ones that perform uh, at a high level as a way to cope is a rarity. It is a rarity. The vast majority go the other direction. That's a beautiful thing, Bob Grimmer. And the age appropriate thing, I think, is probably the most important thing, right? And there's a time to talk to people, and if it were uh, depending on what it is you're talking to children about, I would recommend talking to a professional and seeing what kind of advice that they could give. I'm a big advocate of bringing in pros to help with anything. In all honesty, it's been life changing for me in a big way. When I started to work with professionals, I was able to peel the onion at a different rate of speed, I think. Um, hey, good to see you, Calhoun. I agree, Susan. I absolutely agree, Susan. Sorry, folks. I'm running out of juice. I'm in the hundreds. Like, let's go. For those who don't know, Spanx Calhoun is my son. And sober 9 months. Am I close on that, Spanky? Are we over 9 months? Pretty proud. Pretty proud father, actually. Pretty proud father. And he's been helping me out tremendously in other aspects recently in my life. Pretty proud. 9 months. Good stuff. 9 months. My son, who called me and said, I have a problem, Dad. And I'm telling you what, it's perfect timing, Calhoun. I mean, this is the the subject of tonight's call, and that's a difficult phone call. But it was beautiful. I mean, no one wants to hear that, but it was music to my ears because I knew he was ready to start getting sober. I started therapy 11 months sober. What? Debbie, good for you. 11 months sober. Good for you. No, drinking's never the only problem. I'm telling you, the drinking, the drugs, all of that stuff is all symptoms. Is what it is. It is all symptoms. Susan, you have a stomach thing too? I'm sorry. I really am. I don't know if it's going around or what. It's been bizarre. It really has. It feels so much like food poisoning, or I should say it feels more like food poisoning, I guess, than anything else. But I don't know that that's what I've got. But got sober in 95. Good for you. That is so awesome, Debbie. It really is. How much do you love hearing that? Honestly, how much do you love hearing that? My drug of choice. Yeah. All right, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. And this right here, this is a cat in a basket. Debbie's got it one day at a time. Thank you. Appreciate you all, and I will talk to you at a later date.